Well, I'm back tuning into today's video. Well, normally on Saturday at GavsWeatherVids.com I'll be doing the weekend forecast, but of course the weekend forecast this week is moving to Christmas Eve on Monday, so I'm left with an extra day to come up with something to do on my website, and I thought I'd have a final look, a very final last look at the seasonal models for the winter that we're already in now, 2012-2013. Now this is not in any way changing the GavsWeatherVids.com seasonal forecast, which was for a colder than average winter. I'm not changing that, I'm not tearing it up. I don't believe in updating forecasts really once they're issued. I like to put them out there, let people take what they want from them, and then just let them stand or fall on their own merits really, and you come back at the end of the season and you verify and see what the forecast did. Other forecasters like to change the forecast, update it as you go along and the facts change, but really I don't see the point of that. It kind of, in my opinion, is negating what you're trying to do really. If you're issuing a seasonal forecast, you should just put it out, leave it, let it stand or fall on its own merit, and see what happens at the end of the day. So this isn't changing the forecast that I've issued. The forecast still stands, which is for a cooler or colder than average winter for the United Kingdom. But part of that forecast was based on the seasonal models in November, and we had a very sort of interesting twist in November, which is that the seasonal models shifted from where they were in October. Nearly all the seasonal models in October were going for a colder than average winter, but in November half of those seasonal models shifted to suggesting a milder outcome, and the other half were still going for a colder outcome. So excuse me, we can have a look at the seasonal model updates from December and see how those models have changed, and that's what I'm going to do for this video. See whether the models that were still cold in November have shifted towards mild, or see whether those models in November that went mild have shifted towards cold. I thought it'd just be interesting and fun to have a look at the seasonal models, see what they were suggesting. Now, before I go on video, I just want to talk about the advertising. There'll usually be a video ad over my weather videos at GavsWeatherVids.com. Please play those videos. You'll be supporting GavsWeatherVids.com by doing that. And I also want to mention the historic videos that's coming up over Christmas. I'm going to be doing Christmas Day historic video looking at the White Christmas of 1927, the snowstorm of Christmas 1927, and on Boxing Day it's the big one. It's the severe winter of 62-63. It's a 29-minute epic, almost half an hour that video goes on for. I've already done it, very excited, on Boxing Day. So what we're going to have a look at first of all is the sea surface temperature anomalies. I just want to have a look at the Atlantic temperature anomalies, see how they've changed through December. This was the sea surface temperature anomaly from NOAA on the 29th of November. This formed the basis of my winter 2012-2013 seasonal forecast. So we have a tripole here, the warm, cold and warm bands, and I said that if that continued on into the winter, that suggests a negative NAO. But if you look how things have developed, December, this is the latest chart from NOAA for the 20th of December. We can see that that tripole has faded quite a lot actually through the course of December. We've certainly seen a moderation in the warm band through the tropics. We've certainly seen this cold area in the Mid-Atlantic starting to moderate, and even the warm area south of Greenland has moderated, although it's still there. We still have got some warmer water to the south of Greenland, not as extensive as was the case in November. This is the chart for November, but definite to tripole. They're much more moderate to tripole, still perhaps just about a tripole, but much more moderate type pattern in the Atlantic has developed through December. Now what's interesting about this is that you'll remember the very first thing that went into the seasonal forecast was actually the sea surface temperature anomalies from May. The May sea surface temperature anomalies, I did the video for that on the 1st of June, and at the time I said that the temperature anomalies through May 2012 were not suggesting a negative NAO. We hadn't got the tripole through May, and the reason we use May, or the reason the UK Met Office used to use May, is that there was always the suggestion that the sea surface temperature anomalies you get in May tend to reoccur then once you get through to the next winter. So that's why the UK Met Office always used to use those Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies in May, because the suggestion is that once you get to the winter, then you do start to see those anomalies beginning to come back. And it's interesting that we've had a very good tripole through the autumn, but now we've got to the winter, now we've got to December, that tripole has faded a lot. And well, it's just interesting to think about what happened in May. The sea surface temperature anomalies that we had in May, they weren't suggesting a negative NAO for the coming winter. The forecast that I did based on those sea surface temperature anomalies was for a positive NAO, and it's just interesting that now we've hit the winter, the tripole is fading, and we're beginning to see the Atlantic moving back more towards the kind of pattern that would suggest a positive NAO is likely through the winter. So we had the tripole through the autumn, we had the negative NAO through the autumn. It was colder than average autumn. We've hit the winter, and are we just beginning to see those Atlantic temperature anomalies, sea surface temperature anomalies, beginning to move back towards what they were like in May? It's just interesting to ponder this, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. Certainly when I verify the forecast at the end of the winter, I'll be having a look at those sea surface temperature anomalies and see whether May was in fact a decent pointer. Well, let's get on with the seasonal models, and the first one I want to look at is the UK Met Office. This is the sea surface sea level pressure anomaly from the UK Met Office for January to March, and what we're looking at here is sea surface pressure forecast to be above average, stretching from the Atlantic through much of Europe, central southern Europe having above average pressure, high pressure, with excuse me, with low pressure being predicted up here to the north. So this is suggesting a zonal type pattern from January to March, with westerly winds dominating, high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, Atlantic based air. You would suspect that is very much a mild winter. The ECMWF seasonal model, remember this is just a generic temperature anomaly for 3 months. This is for, again, January to March. It's around the seasonal average, maybe a little bit above, but around the seasonal normal. And that doesn't tell you much, and we can't see much information from the ECMWF because, as I always say in my seasonal videos, the ECMWF do not like sharing their seasonal data. Now, if you have a look at the Brazilian model, that was one of the models going for a colder than average winter in October, then it flipped in November, same as the UK Met Office, and that's maintained as we go into this month's update. Again, this is actually for December to February. We can see that the Brazilian model is predicting above average heights here to the south of the country, stretching in towards Spain, a good Azores high there, near normal heights further north, but the suggestion with this again, very similar to the UK Met Office, that we have high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, a Atlantic dominated winter, very, very likely. The Beijing Climate Centre. Now, the Beijing Climate Centre was one of the models that was still going for a cold pattern last month in November, but it's flipped on us. Just look at this. This is the 500 millibar height anomaly for January to March. So this is suggesting that we have above average heights here to the south of the British Isles, stretching in Central Europe there, below average heights running from the north, from Iceland through into Scandinavia. Again, a suggestion from that would be for a zonal Atlantic mild winter. And if we have a look at how it was, what it was forecasting last month, we can see just how much it's flipped. It was going for still a negative NAO in November. This was one of the models that was still going cold, with strong heights, above average heights around Greenland, trough in the Atlantic into the British Isles. Yeah, that's a negative NAO type pattern, but it's done a flip on us this month, and this is the pattern it's seeing for January to March: above average heights to the south, below average heights to the north, a westerly Atlantic-based winter. Now the CFS model, to be fair to CFS, it's never really been going for a cold winter at any point through this autumn. Actually in October it was probably the only model that was standing on its own really against suggesting a colder type winter pattern. And it's still going with the pattern, but it's been going for all the way along really, which is below average heights to the north, above average heights to the south, an Atlantic westerly based winter. So again, you would suggest from this that this is likely to be a mild type pattern, at least at 700 millibars, with below average heights low pressure to the northwest, above average heights high pressure to the southwest, westerly winds feeding in Atlantic-based air. So the CFS has never really gone for a cold winter at any point over the last few months, and to be fair to it, it's probably the only model that's completely stood alone throughout the autumn. And if it does in fact turn out to be a mild winter, it'll be hats off really to CFS, because it's the only model that never at any point really went for a cold winter. The probabilities from the Russian model still suggesting a cold winter here. These are the temperature probabilities from January to March. Below average temperatures are probable for the British Isles. The model is suggesting, this is the scale here, yes, we've got below normal temperatures probability for Britain and much of Scandinavia. Well, so a cold winter still being predicted by the Russian model. And in terms of precipitation, the Russian model is predicting below average precipitation round and to the west and to the northwest of British Isles. So again, the probability there is that we've got some sort of high pressure out to the west and the north, giving a colder than average wind. So the Russian model is still going for a cold winter. And finally, the Beijing Climate Centre, not the Beijing Climate Centre, what am I talking about? It's the Jamstec IOD model, and the model is actually very interesting because it's going for a cold winter. And just as the CFS has been consistent in not going for a cold winter, I think probably the Jamstec IOD model has been the most consistent in going for a cold winter, and it hasn't flipped, it's still going with it. This will be the last time it predicts the winter, so the winter of 2012-2013. So it's still going for it on its last update, and it's been a consistent signal. It's waxed and waned in the severity, and for much of Europe it's been waxing and waning, but for us in Britain it has always, throughout this autumn, all of the autumn updates, it's been going for a colder than average winter, and it's still going for it. It's still predicting that the British Isles will have a colder than average winter, and it's actually increased the cold for Scandinavia, much of Central Europe as well. And in terms of the precipitation anomaly, it's suggesting that we have a wet winter here around British Isles and much of northwestern and western Europe as well. The salmon pink colour is indicating blocking up to the north. The jet stream is tracking south, so if this is right, this is a cold and wintry winter with quite a bit of precipitation, and with temperatures below average, you would suspect that at some point quite a lot of that precipitation would be falling as snow. So that's it. Most of the models are going for a mild winter, but we've still got the Russian models going for a cold winter. We've still got the Jamstec IOD model very consistently going for a cold winter. But you have to say the balance of probability based on the models now is very much in favour of a milder than average winter. And when you think that in October just about every model was cold, there's been a real flip taken place. A real flip has taken place over the last couple of months, and it just goes to prove that the seasonal models are highly experimental. We can't take them particularly seriously. We're pushing the boundaries of science really with these seasonal models. As time goes on, the models will get better. I'm highly confident of that. The models will improve, and by doing these videos I hope that I'm helping to improve the science, because as we go along we should find over the years that these models are improving all the time. But it's still in its infancy, and this just goes to prove that you can go in 2 months, you can go from most of the models showing cold to most of the models showing mild. But that doesn't mean we will have a mild winter. We've still got the Jamstec model going for cold, And really, we've just got to wait now and see how things pan out. We haven't got long to find out. We're already a good way through December. We've just got January and February to go. So we're just going to have to wait and see how this winter pans out. On the balance of probabilities from the seasonal models, you have to say it is looking like a mild winter, but that certainly doesn't mean that it will definitely be a mild winter. And in any case, the GazWeatherVids.com seasonal forecast that I issued at the start of December still stands, which is for a cold winter. If it isn't right, well, we'll come back at the end of the season and try and explain what's gone wrong. But the seasonal forecast from me is still standing. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow when I'll be looking at spring. We'll be doing the first spring 2013 seasonal model roundup. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.